Ladies and gentlemen, members of City Council, please attend the call meeting of the City Council to be held in the 6th floor conference room, 801 Crawford Street, 5 p.m. Tuesday, August 14, 2012, for the purpose of a public work session. In addition, you may consider a motion to go into closed meeting by order of the mayor. Mr. Cherry?
Here.
Mr. Edmonds?
Here.
Mr. Heretic?
Here.
Mr. Moody? Ms. Randall? Mr. Whitehurst?
Here.
Mayor Wright?
Here.
Mr. Chandler?
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, members of council. As we start your public work session this evening, the first item that we have on the work session agenda would be those items under hot topics. The first hot topic I'd like to call up, I'd like to recognize Captain Sean Dunn. If you join us at the table, Captain Dunn. There is an item on your agenda this evening that talks about the curfew. That's currently at age 16, and it would be a movement or a motion to go to age 17. And wanted to recognize Captain Dunn just to chat with you a minute or two about that. And we'll also make it a point, too, in the regular meeting this evening when the item comes up to have Captain Dunn kind of reiterate what he's discussed or mentioned here. Okay. Captain Dunn, good evening. Thank you.
Good evening, members of council, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Chandler. Thanks for having me. Really, we kind of look at three different areas for the curfew change. And really the primary area is to keep juveniles safe. We feel like there's probably not the right kind of adult supervision out after 11 o'clock at night. So certainly we feel like if those kids are in, they'll certainly be safer, and that's really the primary goal. Second to that, we want to discourage juveniles from being out to commit crime or disorder. You know, naturally, I mean, we all strive for that as well. And then lastly, to just be more in line with other Hampton Road cities. I believe we are the only Southampton Road city who currently doesn't have a curfew ordinance that impacts 17-year-olds. Okay. So we certainly appreciate your consideration with us.
Okay, very good. Thank you, sir.
I was interviewed by Channel 13. I told them when I grew up, I had a 9 o'clock gun. Ready to be in by 9 o'clock. So.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Captain. Hey, Councilman, the next item we want to bring up, we want to give you an update on mosquitoes. We know that's been a challenge for us this particular season. I'd like to recognize our ombudsman, Ms. Bernadette Hogue, to give you an update in terms of what activities we've had in terms of spraying. Ms. Hogue?
Good evening. Mayor, members of council, I just want to let you know mosquito control has truck bogged just over 60,000 acres as of today, with 34,800 of those acres being in the Churchland area of the city. The Army Corps of Engineers had the aerial contractor to larvicide 750 acres on Craney Island on Friday, August 10th. Mosquito control is working to schedule aerial adult control spraying for Monday, August 20th.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. If there are any other questions, then the next item we'd like to chat with you about regards to the item that came up 2 weeks ago on gateways. And there were some issues concerning grass cutting. And just wanted to share with council briefly that we really pinned down the subject matter to be those gateways or entryways into the city. And if we were to name them, of course, if you're coming off 264 downtown tunnel, of course, it'd be that initial exit when you get off the downtown tunnel to come into our downtown area. And of course, the straightaway that tends to head towards Effingham. Then you'd also have Frederick Boulevard. You'd also have Portsmouth Boulevard, Greenwood Drive, Victory, kind of all the way out 264. On the other side, on 164, of course, you would have the West Norfolk Road exit. You'd have Cedar. You'd have Town Point, I think APM terminals, all the way up to College. Of course, College Drive would be in Suffolk. We contacted VDOT to talk to them about those areas, and there's been a rich history over the years, and VDOT has used all sorts of things. They've contracted in the state with sheriff's departments in Norfolk and Portsmouth before, and they decided to consolidate and go with one general contractor for economy of scale. So in talking to VDOT about cutting those gateways, they had a process where currently they cut 3 due to state budget constraints, and I believe it's May, August, October time frame, something like that. Back in their heyday, when revenues were better, they used to cut on a schedule of about 8 to 10 times a year. So we actually had a conversation with VDOT about increasing the amount of cuts that they would have. And to just kind of put it simply, for the areas that we targeted or just talked about in terms of gateways, if we increased an additional 5 times a year, which would be that first tier of what they used to do, which would have been a total of 8 cuts, roughly the cost is about $116,000. Okay. If you went to a schedule where it would be a total of 10 cuts, which would be 7 more than the standard 3 that they do nowadays, you're talking about a cost factor of about, say, $163,000. So you can probably see in that's a lot of acreage that gets cut. And we just wanted to bring this back for your consideration at this point. Don't have a recommendation, of course, if it's something that we would want to consider. Of course, there's not a whole lot of the grass cutting season left. I think VDOT's next cut probably is the August time frame that they would be cutting. So, we could consider and still have some additional conversation. However, I think one of the main issues that VDOT looked at was that they would like to use their contractor to cut, so they would have a continuity or economy of scale as to when it was going to be cut and be able to lock in a price. We're guesstimating that those prices are probably pretty good when we're talking about the amount of acreage. Okay. If there aren't any other questions on that, I mean, if there's any other comments later, we can always look to follow up.
I have a hard time for us paying money to the state. I think eventually we'll have the whole contract. They have a tendency of let us do things for them, then they just give the whole thing to us. I have a problem with that. We need to think about that.
All right.
Okay. Very good.
All right, thank you. We'll go with the next few items. I'm going to call Deputy City Manager Mr. Brandon Godfrey to come forward. A couple of items we'll look to cover. One is going to be the Adopt a Spot program, kind of the old historic program that we had. Also an update on the Splash Park from our meeting 2 weeks ago, and another council inquiry in terms of the planetarium rates. I think, Mr. Mayor, you had asked about that a couple of months ago, and we had mentioned that we would get back with you when we've had that information. Mr. Godfrey?
Thank you, Mr. Chandler. Good evening, Mr. Mayor.
Hey, sir.
Vice Mayor, members of council. We'll start with the Adopt a Spot, just sort of segueing from the discussion about right-of-ways and beautifications. As you know, this was a program that the city had in place prior to 2009, and it was administered by a Clean Community Coordinator. That position was eliminated in 2009, and the Clean Community Commission was inactivated in 2010. There are still 75 Adopt a Spot locations under that original program, and the Parks Division continues to support those. And we do that when those groups or individuals ask for litter bags and supplies. We provide them with those litter bags and supplies, and we arrange for the bag pickup after they do the collection. However, we don't, without a coordinator, we don't do the monitoring of the required 4 pickups a year, and so, they're able to maintain their adopted spot. There's just sort of a self-policing honor system that allows them to keep the sign up and maintain the spot. We just don't check behind them to make sure they're cleaning it up 4 times a year. So the cost to maintain the program at this level of service is pretty minimal. However, again, we don't have staff to do the monitoring or perform safety instruction or to follow up on reports or post new signs. What we will plan to do, though, is to bring back a modified Adopt a Spot program on a pilot basis that will continue to be based on the honor system self-monitoring approach. So that achieves the goal of engaging citizens and taking pride in maintaining public spaces at a minimal city expense. And Parks and Rec, the Parks Division, will continue to provide litter collection supplies and coordinate for the solid waste pickups. And under the former program, the signs cost about $200 a piece, but we're exploring alternatives that we're hoping that could be produced by the sign shop if there are new requests and those groups will want a sign erected. So that's where we are with the Adopt a Spot program.
Okay. Any questions?
How much did the signs were?
They're 24 by 18 signs. The last time we had one made were about $200 a piece. And it's because they have a special Adopt-A-Spot graphic. And so they're not the typical lettering sign that our sign shop manufactures.
We have many requests now for new spots. So.
We have had one recently, and I've corresponded with the lady and provided her the information on the Adopt-A-Spot program, and she's indicated an interest in having a designated spot.
All right, thank you.
Moving on to the splash park, since the last council meeting and the discussion about the on-site sales and the charges for children, we've eliminated the $2 charge for children under 2 years old. We've moved forward on purchasing a token machine to install that would dispense tokens for cash on site. The machine will be mounted inside the gated building entrance for security, but will still provide the convenience of citizens to have on-site purchases for admission. The issue, though, is that the delivery of that token machine could be up to 5 weeks. So in the meantime, what we're working on is putting in place a temporary cash management system at the Splash Park for admissions on site until the token machine is in place and operational. And we're hoping to have this on-site purchase option available by the end of the week.
Very good. Very good. Thank you.
Last item, Ms. Waters, cue that up, is the item you have a PowerPoint presentation at your desk there. This is just to update you on the statistics that we initially presented in January and which you requested an update at your last council meeting. Thank you. Recall that the planetarium opened in October of last year. There are, based on the number of scheduled shows and the number of seats that are in the planetarium auditorium, during that period of time, there were 36,788 available seats. So that gives us the capacity during that period of time. There were 3,941 seats purchased and 9,377 seats that were used by members who purchased an annual membership and had access that way. And so adding those two numbers together from the total capacity was about a 31% utilization rate. You recall when we looked at it back in January for that first quarter, it was about a 22% utilization rate. So it's gone up a little bit, but still could definitely increase given the capacity that we have. And to compare to what was in place prior to the renovation, even though we don't have specific planetarium attendance data available, we estimate that based on the 5 or 6 shows that were available then, that we had about a 75% utilization rate. So then I just depicted this graphically so you sort of see the membership utilization, the individual seats purchased in the left bar as a comparison to the total available seats. And then finally, this was the information that we updated from the first quarter. As we ended the fiscal year last year, our attendance was 217,075. And the admission revenue for the fiscal year was a little over 1.1 million, which was over what we budgeted. So in that regard, we ended up well in the black for the first year. So those are the statistics. The issue that was raised was, is it feasible to look at reducing the $4 charge that we currently add on to each ticket price if somebody wants to go to the planetarium show? And reducing the charge will definitely increase utilization, which is what we want to achieve within the available capacity. So I would recommend that we look at something less than the $4 charge, but I would also recommend that we don't go to zero, or that we don't that we charge something for the planetarium in order to have the planetarium visitors make a conscious decision or choice to attend when they come to purchase their admission. If we make it free, we think there are going to be many more visitors that will request the planetarium admission than will actually attend it, and then it will be a challenge to plan for and utilize the capacity. And we'll probably have, in that case, we'll have some people that may be turned away because we've got more free passes than we have capacity. Also, when we look at this from the standpoint of what it cost us to operate the planetarium, granted, it was provided for us, the equipment was provided for us with a grant. There is some operational cost in that it takes either the planetarium manager or a museum educator to operate it and to set it up for each program. So there is some operating cost involved in running the planetarium, and so I think that justifies some additional charge, whether it be $1 or something less than $4. But so that would be my recommendation, that as we consider a charge, that it'd be something more than free, but less than $4.
How does it operate now? If a person purchases a ticket for the planetarium, is it up and running, or do you have scheduled shows? And if there's scheduled shows, how many shows are we running a day? If we're only getting that few amount of people in there, and we're experiencing, 217,000 people, and we roughly only had about 14,000 of those 217 that opted to utilize the planetarium, that's a real scary figure, that there are a lot of kids and a lot of people opting not to do that. And is it because of cost, or?
I think primarily they're not opting for it because of the cost. There are scheduled shows, and I'd have to look to Nancy Perry to tell you when those scheduled times are on a weekly basis.
Would you please? What I'm thinking is, if you're running several shows and that's running up the operating costs, if we did make it free and only had a show in the morning and in the afternoon, does that help us or not help us from an operating standpoint?
On the weekends, we offer 2 shows, Saturdays 11 and 3 and Sundays 2 and 4. During the school year, the morning, we only offer group programs for school groups, and they generally are for Portsmouth Public Schools. We have a few others that opt for the planetarium, but the cost has pushed them away. In the afternoons, we try to offer 2 shows during the school year. If we can, 3 shows, generally at 2, 3, and 4. During the summer, when the planetarium manager is here, we try and run during the week. We try and run 5 shows a day, 4 to 5 shows a day, but that's between the end of school, June 15th, to Labor Day.
With those few people, you're running all those shows? So what do you got, 1 or 2 people sitting in? I mean, it's hard to justify running 4 or 5 of those shows.
I was going to ask, is there a charge, though, for planetarium for Portsmouth Public Schools?
No, there's no charge for Portsmouth Public Schools, and they're not included.
Oh, they're not included in that number there. Okay, all right.
School groups are not included. This is the general public.
Understand. I got you. I got you.
The numbers grow up. Thank you. The numbers go up when you add Portsmouth Public Schools, because all 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th graders from Portsmouth Public Schools come for a planetarium show. Different shows, but come for a planetarium show. And so those are run during the week in the mornings. We don't.
And that cost is being covered by the school system. That operator, is that their guy that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so that's really no additional cost to us. The additional cost is people outside of our school kids going, then we need that manager.
No, he still runs the show. He runs the performances based on his school schedule. So he runs them also in the summer based on his contract with the schools, which I think is 10.5 month. I don't have that 10.5 month contract.
It was in the.
So what's the fix here? I mean, we got to get the price down.
Right.
Yes, Mr. Hurd.
I was going to say, I mean, given the fact that all we're generating from paid admissions on these seats is less than $16,000 out of a total revenue of $1.1 million. I mean, can we at least drop it on an experimental basis and try it and see if there are utilization problems? I mean, it's almost like it's almost like I don't quite understand why we're sticking with an admission price when it brings us virtually nothing in the overall revenue. If it's a utilization issue, can't we hand out sort of first come, first served tickets as people arrive and see where we go? I mean, can we try that for a few months? We're talking about almost no money here. I'm wondering why we're almost fooling with it.
What do you recommend, Ms. Perry?
Well, when the Beasley Foundation made the donation, and I think Judge Bray's been in contact with you, so if I misspeak, if you'll correct me.
I will. Go ahead.
But I think his hope was that it would be a lower price than $4, if not free. Their goal in donating the money was to upgrade the planetarium and make it available to as many people as possible.
That's correct.
Is it?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Make it free.
So that's the philosophy of our museum's foundation, as well as theirs parallels the Beasley Foundation.
Okay.
And I will make that recommendation also.
Okay, Vice Mayor?
I like the word free, but also like to recover the cost. What would it cost us to charge if we just recovering our costs?
It would depend on the group, really, and when it's being, whether or not it's run just by our museum educator or as opposed to when it's run by the planetarium manager.
Right.
Because a museum educator is our staff that we pay for. The planetarium manager is school staff.
Put a dollar into that?
Well, council members, if I may, if you're looking for lower cost, if you want us to give you some projections, we can do that. One thing I want to make sure that we're all mindful of, remember, you've programmed your budget based on revenues from this project to be at least $900,000. Okay, so whatever becomes free or whatever drops below $900,000, you've got a hold in the budget, and you're going to need some revenue in this current fiscal year to cover whatever that is.
I understand. How much of the membership cost is the planetarium piece? I'm trying to, if we go free, how do we lose that? I don't understand. If they're paying $10 to come through the door now and you're staying with your same package that you offer, why would we not continue to experience the $1 million that we're getting? I mean, how would that hurt?
Well, the revenue you're getting from the $4 extra in the planetarium is the $15,764.
Right, it's not helping.
That's the part of the $1.1 million. The rest of the $1.1,907,000
coming through the front door
comes from just general admission ticket prices. The $15,000 is when people come in and add $4 to purchase the planetarium.
So back to Mr. Hertig's point, it's really a non-issue. We're not right. Well, why don't we do the reverse and go free on a trial basis and see what the numbers are? We've done this now for a year, and we've got these dismal numbers. Why don't we make it free for 6 months to see what the impacts are? I mean, we've got to do something to see where the sweet spot is here. I mean, we want to also cover our costs. We don't want to be sitting in the budget time talking about revenues, and we just said, hey, let's make all this free. But we want to make sure that that planetarium and everything that museum has to offer, all of our kids and everyone that can should be able to experience that opportunity. And from talking with the Beasley Foundation, that was their whole intent in the grant. And again, I don't want to belabor the issue, but we got to find a sweet spot, if we would. Yes, sir.
Just one comment. As council considers what that sweet spot might be, then you may wish to consider going a stair step down. So maybe from 4 to 2. Remember, at this point, if you go 0 and it's free, if that's not the sweet spot, you're going to have a difficult time coming back to 2 because it's been free. I'm just an advisor.
I understand. I hear you, but I don't agree. I think we need to figure out what it is. Brandon, you got that look like you got the answer. Tell us, buddy. You're sitting on it. Tell us.
No. The manager's giving the answer.
But,
Divisions in the family.
okay. All right, what's the pleasure?
Could we try it at 0 for until the end of the calendar year, see what it does? I mean, if we have to put it back in the budget, we put it back in the budget. But I mean, it looks to me like there's not enough money to even fool with. It's less than 0.1% of the overall admission revenue, and well, why are we doing this? It's less than 3% of the overall utilization.
So 6 months, Paige? What are you?
I'm okay with that.
Okay. 6 months free?
I'm okay.
And get the data, and then we'll revisit it. Okay?
Beginning September 1st or immediately?
Beginning yesterday.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Maybe my phone will stop ringing.
All right, technically beginning tomorrow,
Okay, yeah, absolutely.
because
Let's
we
do
will
that.
get calls if we
Yeah.
say yesterday.
Beginning tomorrow, and
There'll be
then,
something.
seriously, and we want to get back in 6 months and look at this and see where that number is. And, I mean, this has been a real pleasing facility. We've got all kinds of great comments. We've got people coming from all over, all the different school districts. I mean, our numbers are just out of the park. We don't want to go and upsize the ship doing something that's too out of the norm, but let's put a 6 month on it and see how we go from there. Steve?
And in fairness to the manager and to Brandon and Nancy for their really good staff work, I mean, if there comes a time where you get to come back and, you want to say, I told you so, I want you to say, I told you so.
Right.
Okay? This one's on us, I think.
It'll probably be a mood issue at that time.
Right.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks a lot, Brandon. Thank you. Thank you. All right.
Let's see, splash mosquitoes, gas cutting. Okay. All right, we do have one closed item, but I know you also have
Okay.
council liaison reports as well.
All right, do we have any liaison report?
We talk about the rumor here and also in the public meeting about the closing of the pool that's not going to happen.
A rumor of closing the pool.
Yeah,
It's not going to happen.
it's not going to happen. Could we just discuss that?
I haven't even heard a rumor. I don't even know what you're talking about. What's the rumor?
He's talking about when Mr. Wright came to the, is that what you're talking about,
Yes.
Cabinet Manager? When Mr. Wright came to the council meeting, I spoke
Okay.
about us not closing the Cabinet Manor pool. But
According to what I read here, it's a rumor. It's not going to happen. It's funded.
Right.
We need to discuss it here and discuss it out there. It's not going to happen.
well, she's going to give us a report on it
Right. We'll get a report out there in the
tonight
meeting.
that is funded through FY13. Ms. Hogger is in a public meeting. So I think we're good.
I think we're good as
And
well.
what we just got to make sure is when we do the following budget,
Right.
that is included as well.
Absolutely.
And I think the manager has that.
Yeah.
If you don't have it, you got it.
Anything else?
You guys have some brochures about safety towns that you know it exists.
Yes.
Providing safe bicycle and pedestrian safety for kids. We want you to have some information. So.
Okay. Very good. Anybody else? All right. We got a motion to go into
Councilmembers, you have a
close.
motion for close.
I move to go into a closed meeting pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A to discuss or consider an economic development matter pursuant to subsection 3 for the sale of publicly owned property and subsection 5 for a prospective business or industry location or expansion which has not been previously announced. The subject is an economic development project in the mid-city area of the city. The purpose of the meeting is to permit confidential discussion of status and negotiating strategy.
Second.
Mr. Cherry?
Yes.
Mr. Edmonds?
Yes.
Mr. Heritage?
Yes.
Mr. Louise absent. Mr. Randall's absent. Mr. Whitehurst?
Yes.
Mayor Wright?
Yes.
Thank you. We are in closed session.